Exactly.
If there was one way, if there was one,
have like 2 dead weeks in March. Whereas like the dead weeks are gone. It's like this week, the next week, like GA's deadline is March 13th, and they're not allowed to vote anymore to like move themselves.
Yeah, like I did.
I would love to read going up. Usually, you guys did a race last week. I know.
Oh, I have forgot to do
I actually have
and then you'll be
David? I like your video. How's everything? What do you have
I mean, maybe.
I don't know where it is. Yes. Just shoot it over. Let's do a walk out high school.
What is it on the scale?
In a way.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
That could be a couple weeks still. I got it. I slack when I stop there. I have so much. Whatever's on. That's what I Stuart. Always saying someone sent an essay.
I got screwed and I was talking to my because we're all getting paid. Yeah, BCLC, you got like business paid. Yeah, we're getting paid for like just higher expectations, but like nothing has changed about our students. Like, they don't have sure, like supposed to
Get off. What's up, Liz?
Hey everyone, we're gonna get started, so on your way up. Don't worry, this is still another anyways. This is right now. Before we get started, I'm gonna turn it over to David Reynolds. Who wants to
Thank you,
say
Mr.
something?
Speaker. I think we erred in not recognizing the passing of one of our college students a few weeks ago, a few weeks ago, was tragically killed in a car crash in Coventry, Connecticut. He was a dedicated member of Delta Sigma Pi Theta Iota chapter, as well as Zeta Beta Tau, and a very involved member of Sigma. I think, we should recognize the contributions he's made to this community, whether it's philanthropy or service, and hopefully we can have a moment of silence to recognize one of my thank you.
Placards.
We were having a moment of silence. Thank you. Excuse me. As many of you know, I am unfortunately ill again. At this point, this is literally, I've come to more senates ill than I have health. But earlier today, when I was complaining about my condition, Chief Justice Moore, who is fortunate enough to live with me, made a radical suggestion, and that is, what if I didn't chair tonight, and instead asked my wonderful deputy speaker, Ethan Wursler, to do so instead. So, for the first time tonight, for this night only, you'll be watching the first Senate in a year and a half that will be fully chaired by me. I'll still be here, I'll be presenting peers. I will have to step out for a quick meeting at 7, but I will be here most of the night, but Ethan will be chairing tonight. So I just want to say that before I turn it over to him. And thank you all in advance for your patience and well wishes. With that, he's still tying his tie, so quick to say.
I know a tight tie.
All right, folks. Maybe I'll do it. Bear with me. I'm sorry about a little bit. I'm just getting the class and just got the shit together. Okay, so let's get going here with the call to order. Ready to call to order, right? Yeah. Good now. So we're calling to order at 6:30 p.m. Any public comment? Actually, folks, why don't everyone grab their name tag, please? That way I know you know what it is. Just grab your name tag, folks. So we know what it is.
Oh, there he is. Why do you look like that, Steve?
Damon has Yeah. Yellow.
Yes. Where the fuck is Hope?
Everyone knows what that means. He told me to please stop.
It's kind of ratchet, but.
All right, folks. Thank you for doing that for me. Bear with me, my voice is still recovering as well. I was sick this weekend, so we're all holding together here. I know everyone's getting sick here. Okay, we're gonna motion to approve the minutes from February 12th, 2020. I have a motion. Senator Collins. Do we have a second? Sorry, Senator Keeling. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I will now move to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Okay, seeing none, this motion fully passes. I will now move to the reports. So first on the list here, we have the Internal Affairs Chair. Report.
Hello, everybody. Okay, this is not. Hello. Okay, perfect. Hi. I know everybody in this room, but if you don't know me, I'm Noah Frank, I'm the Internal Affairs Chair. We had a great meeting this week. We met yesterday from 4 to 5. Thank you so much to my Vice Chair Toscano again for all of your help getting me set up. Just like Ethan and Josh, I have been well for about 4 days out of all of February. So I've been holding it together myself too, so I really could not have done it without the strength of all of our internal members. Thank you guys so much for consistently showing up, showing out. We covered a lot of really important ground. We have some constitutional amendments before you tonight that have to get ratified. So I'm really looking forward to the debate on those, as well as I would just like to announce on behalf of everybody, and Luis, correct me if I'm wrong, but currently since the creation of Internal in September, and my appointment as chair and subsequent appointment of Vice Chairperson Toscano, we have been able to whittle the total number of bylaws down from 26 bylaws to 16 bylaws in total, combining many concepts, taking out redundant language, and making sure that our organization stays accountable to where we truly are today, as well as the total page count. We were at what? 39 pages, and we're down to 23. So for that's a signal to me that our job's working, but that we still got a lot more to do. Our goal is to keep working at it, so thank you everybody for your patience. Again, if you'd like to join, you now have an email, so feel free to email internal affairs. Thank you. It took me several months to do it, but we did it. Thank you, Don. So yeah, really looking forward for everything tonight. Thank you so much to everybody who proposed amendments. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Seeing none, now move to the. Sorry, that's a question. Seeing none, we'll now move to the report of the External Affairs Chair.
Good evening, everyone. So last week was the appropriations hearing. Yay! Thank you to everyone who provided testimony. I'm happy that is concluded so that I can work on other initiatives. Right now we're working on transportation. I created a survey with 325 students who provided information about transportation at UConn, which was really helpful. And I sent out initiatives to CT Transit, and I'm going to have a meeting with them next week. If anyone's interested in being part of that conversation, please let me know. I'm also going to put together transportation for UConn specifically, because we had a lot of feedback about UConn buses. In terms of mental health, I recently met with the head of CNHS, or Shaw, I should say, and FYE, so that we can create mental health videos. I'll be working with Senator Reynolds on that. We also are now putting together a state representatives, Connecticut specifically, roundtable with Senator Cerulli, collaborating with him on that. And we're hoping to have that by the end of March or early April. We're hoping to schedule it during a time when we have caucus, so that we can make sure that as many people here specifically can come and voice our constituents' opinions and what's been going on. Please also, we have External Affairs, Thursday 5 to 6. I can answer any questions anyone may have.
questions, we now have the report of the academic first chair.
Good evening, everyone. So the first thing I want to mention is that we started an academic climate task force that meets on Thursdays from 4 to 4:30. We've created the first surveys that have been going out. We've received about 20 different responses so far for general education requirements, and we're going to start advertisement for that this week. So hopefully that we receive more responses on that. We have Husky Print Free Printing starting next week, so starting Monday, March 2nd, is going through until March 6th, which is the beginning of a lot of midterms for a lot of people right before spring break. The student faculty luncheon event is is in 2 weeks, Wednesday, March 11th, from 12 to 1:30. So I hope that a lot of you can attend. The RSVP for that, the form for that began yesterday, and we've received a few responses so far, so hopefully a lot of you can remake it, and hopefully you can tell your friends to attend that as well. Finals Fair t-shirts for promotion, we're starting to prepare those. We're going to table probably either the week before spring break or as soon as we get back to start promoting for the Finals Care Fair, that whole event. It has been moved outside, so it's not going to be inside anymore. It's going to be out on Fairfield Way, which I'm really excited for. The rec center is trying to see if they can be a partner in that. Freshens as well. Amazon Prime is going to be there, so I'm really excited for all of those partners. We started in our meeting yesterday. We started talking about test optional legislation, and we've all come to the consensus that we need some support to see what other colleges and other universities have done that are test optional. So I've reached out to 12 different schools and colleges, or universities and colleges that are test optional, the admissions departments. I reached out today, and hopefully we'll get some responses back to see how it's worked at their schools and what the statistics are on that. And I've also reached out to Department of Services today to talk about how we can work with them to make sure that students aren't fined or given a ticket during finals week for students that are commuter students, because they're not supposed to park in the commuter lots between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. And so we're trying to work with them to make sure that students are able to park and take the benefit of 24/7 services at the library during finals week. Are there any questions?
Since there are no questions, we have the student services chair. Decorum. Student services chairperson. Representative.
motion to amend it that way.
Okay, great. Do you want to specify that's why it is here? Do we have a second to that motion? Second call from back. Okay. So, wait, so we're gonna get to questions, I guess, about this motion. Any questions about this? Senator Berry.
Question, right?
Yeah.
All right. I was in the bathroom. When will this go into effect? Like, would it cover all breaks like this spring?
Yes, it's in effect. I signed it. It just wasn't allocated in the budget. It was definitely a mea culpa. But I don't think we spent anything, so it's good.
How much money do we have remaining for this year in the budget? Or like how much would be remaining, I guess, like once this is also added?
Once this is added.
This is also taken away,
We go
yeah.
to the summary. Now, we know these summaries are historically inaccurate, but this is projecting reduction 200. So we're spending $215,800 over what we're expected to take in. Now, these numbers, like I said, have historically been inaccurate. It said something similar to this in the fall, and we ended up taking in $70,000 extra. So, what? Is it not included?
How would the funding request go? Is it retroactive or is there a deadline before?
No, so these are for, it's specifically for lodging and travel, so it can only be used for lodging and travel. And the requests come through CO and they're booked through the university's travel company, something USG doesn't use because students book their own travel, but the university does use a travel company. They would, CO handles the reservations and everything, and then once the purchase order is issued, USG would handle it. That's the idea.
And is this the amount of money that we've been paying in previous years?
No, it was increased by 10,000.
How was all that increase? Wasn't all of the previous 70,000 used?
I am under the impression that it was. That's why there was an increase, because there was an extra group added that we decided to cover.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion on this amendment? Yes.
Do I have to?
No, sorry, just project.
I don't know why we're having so many questions about this because I know we should like do our best to vet everything, but undergraduate like community outreach is doing great things that benefit students. So I don't see what the issue is with this money. And I know for my alt break, we would have had to pay $200 individually to go do service, which honestly just like doesn't make sense. So like this money gets used for good things. So even if it's an increase, I think we should still support it.
Any other points of discussion? You jump into town. Yes, thank you. Okay. Seeing there are no more points of discussion, now move into a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? This motion clearly passes. Okay, moving on. So we have a bill concerning. We have a motion concerning bill concerning updates to member compensation. Do we have a motion?
Wait, point of order.
Sorry.
We have.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. You're totally right. I missed that. Sorry. Okay, so the motion passed, but we didn't actually vote the budget yet. That's what that's. Okay, jump the gun here, folks. Sorry. Okay, so are there any other points of discussion on the budget? No? Okay. Yes.
I have a point.
Yeah, please.
Another thing that I thought to add in, but decided not to, was to allocate for office renovations. I thought that that would be best with maybe some collaboration beforehand. In the SFAC budget, we allocated $150,000 for office renovations. So if that's something that you wanted to add into the spring 20 budget now, so that money could be spent now, if that were the case, go ahead. I don't know what the status is on the office renovation committee. I know Jake has done a lot of good work getting quotes and whatnot. But the reason why it's not in now is I thought that was a really huge expense and maybe you guys should bring it forward yourselves, but just putting it out there is going on behind the scenes. So that's what I allocated as fact, which means that we should spend it. That's it.
Okay, any points of discussion?
And I have a question on that. If we don't put it in the budget now, do we have to wait until fall to be able to spend it? Or can we spend it some?
So the idea of putting it in now would be to cover ourselves if anything was to be purchased during the spring 2020 semester. If purchases are going to be made over the summer, we'll be passing a budget at the end of this semester, like a preliminary, for the fall, which would cover the summer. And this actually will cover us up until July 1st. So, excuse me, up until June 30th. So the idea behind putting in now would be to cover any purchases made before June 30th. If there's no purchases to be made beforehand, then putting it in the next budget would be sufficient.
I don't know if we're further enough along the process to allocate money yet. I think we should wait to allocate money until we have a better idea of actual cost.
Okay, any other points of discussion?
I'd like to motion to add $150,000 for USG office renovations into the spring 2020 budget.
Do we have a second?
I don't even know what this is doing.
I'm sorry, what was your name? The second. Okay, is there any motion on this amendment? Sorry. It was 150, that was?
150,000.
You want to make a friendly amendment to that?
Yeah. Can I suggest putting this as its own thing outside any office? Or general, put it under general.
Under general, take it as revenue.
Are there any discussions?
Can I talk?
Oh, yeah, apologies, any questions?
So I'm motioning to have this in now because of the fact that it goes until June 30th is the fact that makes me nervous about ordering anything for the summer because we all love UConn, but construction at UConn is not exactly a very prompt series of events. It's also just for the fact that it would be anything ordered over the summer, anything possibly ordered now. I know office renovations committee, the group talking about office renovations. We've been mulling over ideas of like a live green wall, and that could be a couple of weeks to make, and also money to give them so then they can bring all the things in. Yeah.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions? We'll now move into discussion. Are there any points of discussion?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you can make the budget and then any time, right? So if you want, you can pull this up next week.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. $150,000 seems a bit of an arbitrary number. I think that for something like this, we should definitely have a meeting with the office renovation committee to find out the exact costs of everything. I don't think having meetings within the next week or next 2 weeks would do anything significant for me now, especially since we haven't talked to the committee that's in charge of this. So I think that we should maybe table this amendment until we talk to the renovation.
I mean, I understand that, but at the same time, like, I don't know about the rest of you, but like, I'm kind of tired of doing budget amendments. Like, we've done them like every single Senate. And I mean, I don't really see the harm of putting it in now because keep in mind, like, this is going a committee, or I don't know if this committee would be able to disperse this or that would go before the whole Senate. But like, there will be like some sort of like check and balance if that is the concern. So I don't really see the harm of voting on it now.
Senator Milton?
I'm just gonna update everyone just real quick. I'm not gonna argue either way. I mean, I don't really care, but I'm gonna get it done regardless. But I know I don't communicate, and I know I don't update anyone on like my projects or what I'm doing at all, and that's the way I like it. But basically, where I am right now, I have everything basically priced out. I know where I want to buy things from. I know what I want. The only thing is, I have no clue like what the bidding process is or anything like that, so I'm still up for meetings. I'm up for meetings with the union. I haven't had any of these meetings yet. That's basically where I am. And then once we have those meetings, different things like that, we would eventually order this stuff. It's up to the bidding process and different things like that at this point.
I guess like I'd like to ask if you happen to have like a temporary or like some sort of breakdown of like cost or like an estimate cost by any chance.
I mean, I could send it to you, but if you want to go through like everything right now, that's a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna ask for that. We don't do that right now.
I'm not inherently opposed at all. I just think that it would be more prudent for us to wait so that Senator Knowlton can give us a time for when the bidding process is done, because those numbers will change, probably increase. We don't know when things are going to be delivered yet, and I just think it'd be more prudent to wait, especially because there will be a budget passed at first last that will address this, and the lag time will only be about 30 days or so. So that's just my piece on this.
I motioned for this amendment, and I don't want to put words in Jake's mouth, but I did force him to meet with me. I was like, hey, let's talk over what's happening with the budget, or what's happening with renovations. And from my understanding, the timeline was going to be, he has everything pretty much chosen from where we're going to order things. They're very high quality materials. We went through everything else to make sure that there's outlets and there's benches and there's chairs and there's ergonomic desks and standing desks and all these different things. So he's put a lot of work into it, and I just don't want to get stuck in a corner of, again, like, not sure how the whole bidding process works, but if we do get, if there's a timeline on the whole bidding process, and even within that whole 30 days of turnover, whatever it is, then we get stuck not being able to purchase something that is really quality for the office, and we have to go to something else that isn't something that we wanted would be the best for us if we're going to put all this money into renovating our office. And then timeline. From my understanding, the timeline is we start ordering things through March through April, and then they are shipped in and put together throughout the process of the summer, because there's certain time frames where Dawn and funding staff can't be in there because we have to like paint walls or do something with carpet and take out big structural parts, and we don't want to disturb their job. So they are the ones that set the rules on that part of the timeline. Then all the rest of it, like the whole renovation, has to work around funding staff. So it's going to be a longer process than just like showing up for 2 weeks and moving everything in. So, I don't know. I'll yield to Control. Do I understand?
No, but I'm calling it next time.
I have something else to add here. So I actually budgeted $125,000 for office renovations. So that went to the SBAC committee, so you can't amend an amendment. I don't think it's going to do any harm. We have $25,000. It's not going to break our bank. But if you guys wanted to follow exactly what we put in SBAC, I'm just putting that out there. It's 125, no harm. I don't think anything's going to be harmed by doing 150. And the last thing I want to say is the only reason why I brought this up at the last second like this is because I just spoke to Jake Knowlton recently about this, and he seemed to make really good progress despite not updating us. He seems to have made progress, and I follow the group meeting chats and whatever. So I feel like he has made enough progress that it's realistic to have it completed over the summer, and it needs to be completed over the summer, otherwise it leads to the next summer. So the purpose of putting this in now from a logistics standpoint would be to enable us to spend money without having another Senate dedicated to another budget amendment. So just because we have it in there doesn't mean we have to spend it. It just means that we will be enabled to spend it and hopefully put this budget to rest to consider the next one at the first class Senate.
Are there any other points of discussion?
I have a point of information for the Chief Justice. We cannot amend an amendment, correct?
Correct. Now, we're not voting on them. We're not talking about an amendment on amendment. Just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Okay. Okay. So, are there any other points of discussion? No? Okay. All right. Seeing none, we'll now move into a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of this amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? Okay. All right. This motion clearly passes.
Point of information.
Yeah.
Can we make sure that the summary number is changing? It is. Ah. Yeah.
All right, so set the vote. Yeah.
To the council, can you change your font color the next time you bring it up?
Don't do it! Don't do it!
Madman.
Stand your ground.
I like Bobby.
The next budget will have a different set of colors.
Amazing.
All right, folks. Yeah, a reasonable hour, folks. Okay. So we still have the actual budget here, folks. Are there any other points of discussion on the spring 2020 budget as currently proposed? No? Okay. All those in favor of the bill regarding amendments to the spring 2020 budget, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? Seeing none, this motion clearly passes. All right. Okay. Next up on the docket here, folks, we have a bill concerning updates to member compensation. Is there a motion? Senator Toscano, seconded by Senator Evans. Come on up. Go back.
None of you could the trash. The trash.
Why? That's my energy.
Hi everyone. Here I am again with another governing document amendment. This time it's both bylaws and constitution. Yay! So here we are. We're getting rid of 3 bylaws and turning them into 1, and we're simplifying the way that we talk about the executive branch. So right now we talk about an executive cabinet. We on our website have something about an executive council. I don't see that anywhere else, so we're simplifying it, and we're making the executive branch into 3 distinct offices. First, the office of the president. Oh, this is the wrong one. Never mind, that's coming later. My bad. This is about member compensation, another fun topic. This is also a bylaw and constitution update. Here we are. So, we are combining the 2 bylaws that are currently in there about executive compensation. Can we scroll down to the constitutional amendment? Wait, therefore be it resolved. I'm very sorry. So, we have two therefore be it resolved, changing a clause in the Constitution that talks about the power of the Vice President because it predates our Constitution bylaws. Essentially what this does is it goes through and it says the Vice President used to just have all authority over all hired positions. That's before we talked about member compensation. So we're saying the Vice President has authority over all employees that are not placed under the jurisdiction of other officers. So it doesn't make very much sense for the Vice President to have authority over the Speaker of the Senate, who's being compensated. So we wanted to clarify that. After that, we have another thing clarifying the power of the Vice President and a clarification about the respective offices. Now we have an additional article to add to the Constitution if we scroll down here. So this article is entitled Composition of Members. It essentially puts compensation in the Constitution, but it doesn't mandate that people have to be compensated. It mandates regulations that have to be followed if people are to be compensated. I encourage everyone to read this on their own. Can we scroll down to the bylaw amendments? So before you noticed that the first bylaw had 4 categories of people who can be paid. Now it outlines everyone who can be paid very clearly. There are some changes to the people who are currently being paid. These changes were discussed with the executive branch in a productive talk that I had with Walter, and he seemed to be on board at that time. Chief of Staff to the President, Dotson. My bad. Then we have the amendment that we made last time. From there, we changed around some of the number 3. We put the funding student staff supervisor at the upper bound of class 3 because Erin does a lot of work, more work than I'd almost argue anyone is supposed to do. Other than that, everyone is where they are. I don't think we changed much else. Stuart might know a little bit more about that.
Okay, so 3 clauses that are new that I want to draw your attention to is number 8 in that list there. Those are a list of things that are not eligible for compensation. This was a list that was not included in the original bylaw, so I just urge you to go over those. I think most of them are common sense. One that I want to draw your attention to in particular is clause D, and basically all this does is says, if you don't have a reason for being at Senate, you shouldn't be compensated for Senate. So if you're not the Speaker, if you're not mandated to be here by the documents, if you're not giving a report, you're not going to be compensated for Senate. Just that, I don't really see the point. And then 9 is just saying, kind of like a duh, you can't, if you're a supervisor, you can't tell someone to do something they're not being paid for. This is established in labor law. It's just putting it into our bylaws. And then 10 is, again, something that kind of already exists, but which I wanted to codify, which is that members will be required to be knowledgeable of the governing documents to be employed. I think that's a good thing to include. One final thing I want to note, going back to the constitutional amendment that Caleb reminded me of, is I had a conversation with Krista O'Brien about oversight and methods of seeing what people are doing with their time. And she told me that at any time, Senate can go into executive session and see people's timesheets. So we just, again, codified that. It's something we could do right now if we wanted to. But this is just putting into our documents to add that extra layer of oversight. So yeah, I know people might have questions. We're happy to answer anything.
Are there any questions? Senator Long.
Possibly clarify just what positions will not be being paid if this passes?
Yes, I can do that. So currently, we will remove the Vice Presidential Chief of Staff from being compensated. We will remove the Operations and Risk Manager from being compensated, and we will remove the Deputy Comptroller from being compensated. I think that's it, Stuart. Am I right? Yes, that is it.
Are there any other questions for the owners here?
When is take back?
So we actually have a great clause about that if we scroll up a little bit. It's a therefore clause. It's the last therefore clause, I think. Any member who holds positions that are rendered obsolete or whose responsibilities are altered by these amendments shall be exempt from them and continue to operate within their existing purview/job descriptions until the new student body president is sworn in spring 2020, or their terms expire, whichever comes first.
Is there any other questions to the audience, folks? Yes, everyone again.
So I wanted to just know the justification for moving deputy comptroller as a compensated member of that office.
So I'll give that to the deputy comptroller.
Yeah, so part of the reason for this is really a goal with this bylaw was to eliminate duplicate job descriptions and vague job descriptions. So I know Senator Toscano and I have talked about potentially working on an update in the future that'll create kind of like a revamped bookkeeper position or like a finance director, but as it stands right now, just feel that it needs to be reworked, and until it is, it should be removed. But yeah, that'll be a conversation that'll be had probably later in this semester and into next semester.
Are there any other questions to the authors, folks? Okay. Seeing none. Oh yeah.
Are there any job line items in this that are duplicated between positions? So my concern is, as a hypothetical example, passing this would not really allow the executive chief of staff to be compensated for checking emails if that's also in the president's job description.
So I disagree with you to a certain extent. So yes, the only one that could be conceived that way is the executive chief of staff, but the role is substantially different than just being like a deputy president. So the role now serves as kind of a coordinator of the office of the president, rather than just like the president tells me to do something and I get it done. So the job is a significantly different job. So it's not like the president is like just has a personal assistant. That is kind of trying to be gotten away from, because if you're compensating a member, in my opinion, they should not get unpaid personal assistant, according to this undergraduate student government. I think that if you want to compensate someone, you should give them a specific task, and then that task is what they can be compensated for. That's just my philosophy. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, just to add on to that too, to make it clear, so the idea of the executive chief of staff is this is combining the presidential chief of staff, the vice presidential chief of staff, and the operations and risk manager, and just creating kind of like a larger position with a distinct set of responsibilities. We think it's more efficient to do it this way. I know we're happy to hear other people's thoughts during discussion, but that's the logic behind that.
Okay, are there any other questions? Yeah.
Who's to enforce, can the president have the vice president, can the president have the chief of staff do whatever they ask? How much that can enforce?
Yeah, so that was that's the reason for number 8 actually, is creating, no, you're on it, yeah. So we're explicitly stating, these are responsibilities you can't be compensated for. So that's was a concern that we had, and this is our way of combating it. I mean, it's not a foolproof system, but I think it's a start.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Oh, and one more thing I would say is we have, I think there is a review process, when there are issues.
I brought this. All right. So, are there any more questions? We'll do a discussion in the open process. Thank you very much, authors. Now move to discussion. Senator, excuse me, Comptroller.
Thank you, Deputy Comptroller Allen and Senator Toscano, for bringing this forward. I think this is a great first step But I do have a few concerns. So one of the labor laws that has come up like countless times over the last couple of months basically says that someone cannot be compensated for doing a task that someone else volunteers for. So what that would mean in this case is this prohibition in clause 8B to be exact. Essentially what that would mean is the new executive chief of staff would just not be allowed to check email. So it's going to change the way that the organization operates, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Because what this would mean were, according to our documents, the executive chief of staff could not be paid for checking email because it's something that is designated to the president or the vice president. And therefore, the president or the vice president would then not be able to direct the executive chief of staff to respond to email, because if they were, they would not be being paid, which would be considered a volunteer, and that's against labor laws, okay? So I know it's kind of like, gotta come full circle. So I think 8B is a problem because it conflicts with federal labor law. In addition, the clause up above that says that all new positions would need to go to a vote in the spring or the fall, I think that's gonna hinder the way the organization operates. Executive compensation is new. We're working through the problems, and I think we've been overall pretty successful doing that. But because it's only a year old, I don't think we should stifle ourselves and essentially prevent us from creating new positions if the next administration feels fit. Maybe this is something that should be added a couple years down the road, but since it's still new, like I said, I think we're going to stifle ourselves if we say that new positions have to go to a vote of the student body first. And the last point on the executive session, the last point I want to make is the executive sessions for timesheets. That's something that I just learned about myself, so that's something that we can motion, you as a Senate can motion to go into at any time, and you would gain access to the notes and the individual timesheets of every compensated member of USG. And I think that's going to be very beneficial moving forward, because that would allow you to hold compensated members accountable under the clause that says that you can motion to terminate their compensation. That's something that can't be done now, but with the passage of this, it would give you that authority. And I think, and I really encourage you to adopt that within this document. I think that's very important.
Sorry, what are you referring to with the voting? Just which number?
It's up above, I forgot the number. Where new positions? What? Yeah, new. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we got rid of it.
When? Just now?
No, that was like several days before internal affairs we got rid of it.
Well, I just read it, so
okay, so
I read an old
Are there
document.
2 other copies in the drive right now?
yeah, okay. I don't
Right now
know.
they're
Could you yield to me?
Yeah, I yield to Josh. Speaker.
I believe that Comptroller Sakamoto, and correct me if I'm wrong, is referring to a clause that says that in extreme is this the right one?
So, yeah.
In extreme circumstances, this may actually be in another piece of legislation. There's a clause somewhere that says in extreme circumstances, the president, the comptroller, and the advisor of USG can make a motion in the judiciary to suspend compensation of some or all members if it becomes damaging to, in extreme circumstances, when it becomes damaging to the budget. It would then require a full vote of the entire USG judiciary.
Maybe, I mean,
Majority.
It's the last clause of the article in the Constitution.
Yes. So that is different than, just to clear up any confusion, there's nothing that allows this body to individually suspend compensation for anything.
To clarify that, but it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's my piece.
Yeah. Thank you. So you also have access to your cases.
Yes.
Sure.
So on the point that the comptroller makes about checking emails, from my understanding, because in responsibilities of everyone. Right there. General functions, 6B, responding to communications. All of the jobs listed can respond to all communications. It just means that the chief of staff cannot reply to the vice president email, from my understanding. And they can't reply to the president email, but they can reply to their own chief of staff email. From my understanding, I don't interpret our stuff, so, you know. I'm personally in favor of this compensation, reworking of the compensation. Louise and I talked a lot about it, and Stuart has had a lot of input in it as well, which I think is kind of funny because he's getting rid of his own job. That's just me. I think that it's important that we restructure the way, and we are always on top of the way that we're compensating members. And I think it's also important to recognize when jobs are very effective in this organization and when they are not as effective in this organization, and how we are spending money and all of that. I think it's really great that we're also delineating compensation functions of each of the different positions. And then I also think from the standpoint as a senator, saying that restricting what people can be compensated for is also very important, because I feel like that's been a lot of turmoil in Senate in general, is saying that someone is fulfilling a duty at a social event or at some sort of something that everyone else just so happens to be there, but they're getting paid for that thing. I don't always feel comfortable with, and I think that this covers it really well. I also think that because this part of it is all bylaw, the other part of it is constitutional, we have the power to change our bylaws at whenever. So I think at first last, if we're like, you know what, change it all again, Louise might cry, but you know. We have that power, like we have that power as senators. But I think that this is a very great step forward. And I think that the people that are holding the roles that will then not exist after their term is over have done a fantastic job in their roles right now, and have a lot of our executive cabinet has like taken the work and the responsibility of now being compensated to a whole other level. Like people have really stepped up, basically what I'm trying to say. They've stepped up, they're doing their jobs, our committees are functioning so much better, we have so many more initiatives happening, we're on top of all of these different things that the campus is doing. And I think that's really, really great.
Thank you. Okay. Next one, the speakers of are we all set?
You can take me off. I just wanted to clarify what you
appreciate it. Thank you.
I just have a question, because you mentioned that the funding supervisors rate change. Did the executive chief of staff also change now that they're doing 3 roles?
I think that it did, but I'm not sure. I have to consult the old bylaws. This has been happening for a long time. Let me double check.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
I think it did because it was at the lower class of class 3, and now it's determined as median of class 3, which is on the same level as committee chairpersons and public relations director.
Yeah, I believe before it was class 2, now it's median of class 3.
Let me tell you, it's 2.
Yeah.
It's currently 2.
Yeah, it's current. Now it's median of 3.
Great, so it's going to change it. Awesome. Okay. There we go. All right. So, moving forward here, folks, are there any points of discussion? Then we move to a vote. Okay. No more points of discussion. We move to a vote. All those in favor of a bill concerning updates to member compensation, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Are there any abstentions? See none. This motion being passes. Moving right along, folks. A bylaw update, compensation of executive. We're going to limit the speakers list at 2 minutes here, folks. Yep.
I believe this agenda item is supposed to say composition of executive branch.
Yeah, not composition, not compensation. Okay. My bad. Okay, right.
Okay. Great. Come on up, folks. Actually, sorry, we need a motion. Is there a motion? Speaker Crow. Is there a second? Yeah, Senator. Okay.
I don't know why I was in front of me.
We're gonna keep the questions at 5 minutes, folks, on the speakers list itself at 2 minutes.
Hi everyone. What I was talking about before at the beginning, that last one, is this one. So, these were kind of written in tandem. I almost put them together, but I thought that they served two fundamentally different purposes, so I wanted to separate them. So the last one changed the way that we did compensation. This one changes the way we talk about the executive branch. So currently there are different ways of talking about the executive branch, like I said before. There's an executive council somewhere, there's executive cabinet, there's the office of the president, there's the governing board. This just makes it so that the executive branch that the president appoints is the office of the president, which makes the most sense in my opinion. Then we delineated that the office of the comptroller is a different thing because the comptroller is elected by the student body, and that also kind of makes sense, and that he's responsible for currently his unpaid deputies and the inventory director. The office of the president can add whoever they want, but we outlined a couple of the positions that could be in there. And then we also put the funding student staff in there. I talked to Erin about the amendment. She was very happy with the condensation of the bylaw as it used to be into this, and she put her stamp of approval on it when I met with her about a week ago. Unless Stuart has anything to add, I yield to questions.
Great. Any questions for the authors or colleagues?
Yes. So the funding staff supervisor I know is similar to the other members in that the president essentially hires them. But the EOC is not distinguished. Are they still going to be required to be confirmed by the Senate?
Currently, based on the way it's written, yes. Wait, maybe.
Yeah, 2/3.
Yeah, he's appointed by the president and confirmed by 2/3 vote of the Senate. So, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Are there any points of discussion? Councilors Logan.
So going back to what I said in the now passed document, because of the federal labor law thing that I discussed, having deputy comptrollers included in here is essentially a moot point because they would never be able to be directed to do anything because what they'd be directed to do is what I'm supposed to do. And therefore, since they can't be paid, I couldn't direct them to do that. Does that make
By me directing Ethan to chair this meeting, I am a paid member. Are you saying right now
Yes.
that are violating federal labor laws?
Yep.
Are you kidding?
No. This is an ongoing issue, and it's something that we've been trying to work through. But the idea is, someone may not be compensated. 1 second. Someone may not be compensated for completing a task for which someone else volunteers. So the way it would be applied is essentially, Mr. Speaker would not be able to be compensated for his duties because Deputy Speaker is doing that for free. That's the idea of the law. So now, this is something that we're working through, and it's something that all Tier 3s typically have encountered in one way or another. So, don't raise the alarm. We're trying to work through it, but just putting this out there, yeah, so we couldn't really have deputy comptrollers anymore, which I'm fine with, but so we might as well strike them from the document, is my proposal, or we amend the past legislation if that's possible.
Sorry. It's Stuart. You're next to the agenda. If you want to, you don't have to. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so my response to that is I kind of referenced this in the introduction of the other one that Luis and I are talking about. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we referenced this in the introduction where Luis and I are going to try and work on creating a replacement position for this, maybe creating a bookkeeper for USG so that we have more accurate records. Deputy Comptroller is staying in here, honestly, just as a placeholder right now, until we rework it into something else. So that's how I would address that point.
And I yield to you.
We have 45 seconds. Sorry. I just want to finish this thought quickly so that I don't have to go up on the speakers list. I see what the comptroller is saying, and I think that on a certain level there has to be disagreement that I would like to look into the future. I'd like to delve into labor law more, perhaps with the Chief Justice, to understand its full nuances. But for now, I would like to keep the deputy comptroller position in, and perhaps outline in its job description a more precise duty that would not be overlapping with the duty of the comptroller. So perhaps taking a duty that a comptroller does and specifically allocating that to a deputy comptroller, as I said before. So I just see specificity in that role in the future. Thank you.
To say that comptroller would be violating the law by appointing a task to deputy comptroller who is not compensated is a bit extreme. As long as people running the duties of a specific position know that they will not be compensated for whatever their authority is telling them to do, I think it's fine. I really don't think that the police would come knocking on your door just because Fabio told Stuart to do something and he's getting compensated while Stuart isn't. I really don't think that's a big deal. I think this is a very comprehensive piece of legislation in complement to the previous one that we just passed. So I really think we should just pass it. I really don't think the police is going to come knocking on any one of our doors if they haven't already.
I yield.
Hi, okay, let me just address that really quick. So, just to put it in perspective, where this becomes an issue is our friend Kim Miller that sits on the third floor. So, she's in charge of enforcing these kind of rules. So, the police are not going to come knocking on our doorstep, and I know it sounds extreme, but we have technically violated federal labor law in the past with things like this. And it's Kim Miller that comes around and says, well, learn from your mistake, you can't do this in the future. So that's my point. There's no point in having deputy comptroller included in this document. I think it's a great piece of legislation, but when the next comptroller is sworn in at the end of the spring, they really would not be able to appoint a deputy comptroller, because if they did, the deputy comptroller just couldn't do anything, in theory, because they would need to be paid if they did. So that's why I suggest taking them out. And it applies. No way. That's it.
I'm not going to touch that because I'm sick and I want to get you all infected. First thing first, I just want to say I'd honestly rather the FBI come knocking on my door than Kim Miller. Just want to put that on the record. Second thing, I would also point out, first of all, I understand, Senator Betty, that you think this is extreme. I may even think this is extreme, but it doesn't matter what we think, because federal law says this, and our opinions really don't matter in this specific area. The opinions of the judiciary don't really matter in this area. And third of all, I would like to point out that the reason that the police haven't come knocking on our door before is it has been unintentional. Like when we passed this last year, we did not willingly violate labor law. I think there's a load of difference between students accidentally making up positions and violating labor law, and students then willfully deciding, knowing the law and knowing the problem, to continue to violate it. I will yield.
Oh, no. My question was answered.
Totally agree with the previous speaker. All I was trying to say is that there are probably nuances within the labor law that would make this okay. That's all I'm saying, that there are probably some type of nuances within our federal law that would prevent the police from knocking on our door.
Oh. 30 seconds. So the labor laws, the way they work is essentially someone would have to bring a suit. Okay, so if someone is violating labor law, the person that is the victim could theoretically file a suit and sue the person that's violating the laws. Okay, the labor laws tend to also sometimes conflict with one another, and there's essentially a hierarchy in which some are considered more severe. So if a violation is more severe, perhaps someone shouldn't be getting paid for something, but not paying them is worse of an offense, they get paid. Does that make sense? So the whole idea of enforcing labor law is to ensure that you don't get sued. That's the whole purpose here. I don't want anything.
Thank you for the clarification. Do you have a motion or?
Put a motion to amend, to strike all mention of a deputy comptroller. I know that's not exact language, sorry about that,
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Okay, seeing as there's no second, we can't go forward with that motion. Yeah.
I noted this actually. Is there someone in the world of Kim Miller that is an expert on labor law at the university?
Yes, general counsel. So if KMN has, quite frankly, none of us are lawyers. A lot of us like to think we're going to be, but I really think that this conversation is worth having with the counsel. But to answer the question, general counsel.
Okay.
What labor law exactly is this violating?
Federal Labor Standards Act of 1938.
There's been a point of order, there's been a motion made.
So can I get a second, so we're not gonna say, Mitchell?
Can I motion to lay this on the table?
You wanna vote on this, sort of, your time, vote on this?
No, like, just leave it to like, get edited or whatever.
Oh, gotcha, okay, so that'd be table.
Yeah.
No, hang on. If you may yield to me for a moment.
Go for it. We table it for a certain amount of time.
If we table it, we cannot amend it. If you would like it to be changed, we should send it back to the internal affairs.
So which would be your preference?
Wherever needs to go to get discussed by the people.
Okay. So we're going to refer this back to the Internal Affairs Committee, if that's okay with you, with that motion. We have a second to that motion. Okay. Are there any discussion on that motion?
Hi, everyone. I would rather that we didn't send this back to internal because it has a constitutional amendment. We have to pass a constitutional amendment today if we want it to go into effect for next semester. The constitutional amendment in here changes how we talk about the executive branch in the Constitution. So please, as long as we pass that, I'm very happy. I'm down to get rid of the deputy comptroller if we want to. Like, that's fine. But I think that there needs to be a position there that we're going to work on in the future. It's just because the deadline's today to get this constitutional amendment in. Please, can we pass it today? That's please. Pretty please.
Yeah. Question. Is the deputy comptroller position in the Constitution? I thought it was.
I don't. Unless there's other information.
Motion to strike that. Consulted with the Office of General Counsel.
Okay, I don't know.
No? Have you talked to the General Counsel? Have you talked to the General Counsel?
Yeah, okay.
They won't let us talk to General Counsel. Kim Miller told us.
So I don't know anything about labor law, but I really don't think this is an issue because if someone is applying for a volunteer position, then they can't sue for something they know is volunteer. And Ethan knows that he's not being paid. He can't sue Josh or the USG for not being paid for doing something he knew, willingly knew was unpaid. Right? If someone applies for the deputy comptroller position and they know it's a volunteer position, you can ask them whoever because they applied for the position. If they don't want to do something that's not paid, then they won't apply for it. I don't think it's an issue at all, but put that on the floor.
Motion of the meeting, wait, hang on a second. Where are we?
We're discussing the motion that said.
Where are we? I motion to move this to whoever.
You motion to refer this to the Internal Affairs Committee. We're in discussion right now. We'll let her speak and then take other motions. All right, so we'll go back over.
Brandon summed it up perfectly. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Because this position is not compensated, it is a volunteer position. And you knowingly applying to this volunteer position I don't see how you would sue your authority after like knowingly applying for the wrong position. The second thing, if we were to strike,
Senator Betty, this seems like a conversation on the legislation on the whole. We're currently considering a motion to send this back.
Yeah.
no, that's what I, can I?
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Make sure it flies back to the motions order.
Yes. Therefore, I don't think this is a problem. I don't think it needs to be discussed further in internal. I think that we should pass it now. Secondly, if we were to strike, this is a bit tangential, but if we were to strike the part about deputy comptroller, we would also have to go through our bylaws and amend our bylaws as well. As Josh was saying, there are certain duties that speaker can assign to chief and other exec members. We would have to like strike out all of that or amend all of that. And again, going back to my original point, if you are applying for a voluntary position, you can't sue your authority. Like that's why I was saying it sounded a little strange. Sorry if I may sound frustrated. I humbly apologize. And I think we should pass this now.
Okay, so this may just be my opinion, but it seems like we're making a gigantic deal out of something that is a consolidation largely of bylaws. Now, I just had a very brief conversation with the authors, and it seems like this could very easily be fixed and passed now with the authors being happy and keeping us out of the way of any laws. Now, I cannot motion as the Chief Justice, but were I able to, I would suggest that maybe the maker of the motion to table withdraw the motion, and then maybe someone else could motion to amend, and then this would all be done. I yield.
Amend in what way? Just
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically?
Not right now, because we're all talking about.
I've already
Just take it for the real perspective in that sense. So, that being said, no more discussion. We're going to vote unless the author would like to withdraw the statement. Withdraw the motion? No. That's okay. You want to withdraw or you don't want to withdraw?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I need a yes or no.
Yes.
So what do you want me to do?
I want to withdraw my motion.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to withdraw that motion. That means we're back on the original motion. Are there any motions? Do we have a motion?
I would like to motion.
Great.
My motion to strike, can I see the bylaw amendment, just so that I can do it properly?
Yeah.
I would like to motion to strike all of clause B from the office of the comptroller, removing any mention of the deputy comptroller from our bylaws.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Yeah. Is that a second? I need a second.
Yeah.
Yep. Question.
If you're striking the duty of deputy comptroller, it wouldn't affect the first deputy comptroller, right? So he doesn't really, yeah.
Answer is no to that question, obviously.
Point of information.
Yeah.
This is that same disclaimer clause that's in the conference that was in the
Applies to
conference.
it.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So now we're discussing this motion.
Taking as friendly.
Taking as friendly?
Yeah.
Okay. The others want to come up and defend it, or just want to get into chatting about it?
It's just friendly.
Oh, it is.
Unless someone objects, it's friendly.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So by unanimous consent. Anyone against it? Okay, anyone against it? Awesome, okay, so just add it.
Yes, just add.
Thank you. Okay, back to the original bill here, folks. Any points of discussion, or we're moving to a vote? Please. Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay, unless there's, we're not speaking. Okay, okay. So is there any motion to move to the previous question? Senator Rodriguez? Motion to move to the previous question? Yeah. Second. Okay, so now that being said, we're moving to a vote. All those in favor on a bill concerning, a bylaw. Oh yeah. Okay. All those in favor of moving to the previous question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, this motion clearly passes. And now moving to a vote on a bylaw update.
There's an abstention.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, one abstention. And then we now move to a vote on a bylaw update composition of executive branch. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Abstention? Okay. This motion clearly passes. We're moving quite silly long here. We have 2 more things to talk about here, and we're going to be out shortly. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. A bill concerning several non-substantial amendments to the Tier 2 funding. We have a motion. Senator Collins, seconded by Senator Shad.
Hi guys, long time no see. This is a bill that's just the product of the conversation with Mayor McConnell, with the comptroller, just making some minor tweaks to Tier 2 funding policies. I'll just go through them one by one, I guess. The first one is that we're putting a minimum request amount of $30 for Tier 2 funding requests. And the story behind this one is that the funding staff have complained about getting a lot of like dumb little requests for like $9, or last week I think there was an invoice for 74 cents that went to the funding staff. And I just feel that like when the labor costs associated with processing your request are outpacing the actual amount of the request by like 50 times, I feel like that's a bad sign. We're just putting a minimum cap in here. What else are we doing? Oh yeah. The second one, the 4.8 shall include. This is actually great news. So we found out Tier 3 policy originally mandated 3 quotes for requests. If you're a Tier 2 officer, you probably know about that. But they actually eliminated that. Now you only need 1 quote for requests that are under $5,000 that aren't bus transportation. So this amendment is just incorporating all of that. The 5.2 DI, that has to do with second chance funding. And there was just a little contradiction because like second chance funding is supposed to be for people who miss deadlines, that's supposed to be included. But 5.2 DI says that you can't file an appeal for missing a deadline, so this is just eliminating the contradiction. And then the last one, so this is just saying that there's a limit for when you can submit second chance funding appeals, but it's leaving that at the discretion of the funding student staff supervisor. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for the author? This motion. Okay. Seeing none, we now move to discussion. Are there any points of discussion on this bill? Yep. Quorum, we're this 27. I think we are about 27. You just checked before changes. Okay. Okay. Is there any other points of discussion this time? No. Seeing none, we now move into a vote on a bill concerning several non-substantial amendments to Tier 2 funding policies. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? Seeing none, this motion passes. All right, folks. That was a tired clap. Here we are. Okay, so on to the PEERS Act, folks. Do we have a motion to introduce the PEERS Act? Senator Knight and Senator Campbell. Okay. May the authors of the legislation come on up.
I will not be holding the mic again. Fun fact, do you know more people are alive today than have ever died? Why? Anyway. You heard this ad nauseum at this point. Every member of this room has had public discussions about it, private discussions about it. The only change that's been made that I'm aware of is right now the undergrad trustee has been moved from formerly a voting position on both the governing board and the Senate to now a non-voting position. There were concerns about the fact that if the undergrad trustee gets elected from another campus, they can't be a member of our student government by definition. And also the fact that our advisors had concerns about potential conflicts of interest. But other than that, this is as presented. All of these positions, there's the 15 of them from 15 various organizations, The organizations would choose their representatives, they'd be nominated to this body would confirm them, and then they'd have to serve out all of their restrictions the same as everyone. The rest of the legislation is just the rest of the membership bylaw, so it's all compiled into one and easy to access for anyone. I will yield to the ghost of Senate Pass.
Oh, you have questions?
All right.
Are there any questions for the audience? Yes.
Okay, so I was just going over the Constitution and all that. Can ex officio senators under this legislation that will pass be the speaker for select representatives?
Yes.
Is there a start and end date to the terms for ex officios?
Whenever they're confirmed to the end to either they resign or until the end of the spring. Actually,
I guess it's as long as their org wants them to serve.
yeah, there is no term.
The seat belongs to the organization always. It is filled so long as the organization wishes it to be filled.
Is there a follow-up question?
Oh yeah. And then are the representatives confirmed by Senate, or no? It's only the senators that are confirmed.
Only the senators.
So I don't have a question. I just want to say that we've had ample time to look over this and debate this. So I'm just hoping that we don't get into a really debate about this.
I'm not sure it's a question. Thank you very much. You'll be able to say that discussion. Yeah.
Just a quick thing here. So the ex officios, do they have voting rights or do they not have voting rights?
In this legislation, yes, they will have.
Okay. Next question.
I have a question. Can you define ex officio?
What ex officio means by virtue of the office. I took Latin in high school. It means because you hold a position in one place, you hold it in another.
Yeah. So the organization holds the seat, but if those senators don't meet the requirements or standards of USG, can we remove them?
Yep, they're senators, so they're subject to impeachment, no confidence, and discipline from the office of the speaker.
So we can remove them, you all can remove them, and any undergraduate can remove them by impeachment.
And could that organization just nominate that same person again for the same position?
Yeah,
could.
All of you could also run for re-election. So.
Senator Shad, you have something? Other questions for the office folks? Okay. Seeing none, gentlemen, welcome to your seats. We will now move into a discussion. Are there any points of discussion on this motion? Execution.
So as an ex-officio senator, I urge you all to support this. I think it's going to be great. I think it'll make USG seem much more welcoming and inclusive. You really get a lot of other groups involved. I think it's really important to this organization to have these other groups involved. So please support it. Please vote yes.
Yep.
Can I motion to have my name added onto the sponsors list?
Doesn't require a motion, you can just put it on.
Senator Blind, do you have something?
Yes. I'm up for discussion. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. I have a discussion.
Yep, I apologize.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. As many know, I'm not the biggest favor of this bill for a lot of reasons. And honestly, I wanted to bring up some things that I think people should have in mind before we vote on this. One, personally, my feelings are that this bill is pretty much the most undemocratic thing I've ever seen come up to USG, because we're allowing an organization to basically appoint a full-fledged senator into our Senate. Also, I disagree with certain other aspects of it, but and I want to say, as someone who is, I would call myself a pretty active senator, I talk with my constituents. I've had multiple sessions with my constituency about this bill, and multiple people disagree with it on many grounds, especially the fact that they're getting appointments. You know, the whole thing with the appointments, I think, is the biggest issue with this bill. What my constituents have stated, what I personally feel, is that this bill should, instead of just allowing an organization to skip the process of the election system and to throw someone into an office that's equal to those who had to work for them to get here, I feel that those people should have to run for that seat. And I also feel that, lastly, that that if we're trying to, since this bill is all about making USG more inclusive, I think this is the wrong way to go about it, because we already have open seats, and I think we should focus on those before making a piece of legislation that just creates seats for the hell of it. Thank you.
I definitely support this. I don't think that we're just opening up seats to open them. I think we're encouraging people to come into this organization who otherwise wouldn't understand or go about the process of getting seats. And I just want to point out that I would love to have more senators in here because it's Mental Health Action Day. All we've talked about today is internal activities. And I'm sorry, I'm like getting really emotional because I was at it today. But I just wish there were people in here who would bring up legislation like that. And maybe having more senators in here representing those communities would be amazing. I have to go. It's 8:30. I really wish we could talk about this for Mental Health Action Day. If you want to email me External Affairs, or come to my committee 5 to 6 tomorrow. I really hope we can make a change and skin this.
Ethan, sorry, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want a motion to move the previous question.
No, I.
Yeah,
I'll be quick.
I'm actually getting an actual voting point. I think this is the important part of that. It's also not important.
Question?
Yeah.
When does this go to action?
When does it go to action?
Yeah, so this would be not instantaneously right now, would it be for class?
Let's get ratified.
Early anyway?
This would be for the
This is constitutional amendment, and not state anything to, needs to be inside the board first. All the amendments that have been passed are constitutional. So when they do that, we can say.
So like if this has to be voted on by the student body, and then let's say like the next day, the board of trustees, that's not the schedule, but if the next day the board of trustees says yes, then like theoretically March 7th, we could have these ex officios as senators.
What is the question?
The question is when does this go into effect?
It needs to be ratified by the student body before it's even in our process. So.
Student body and also board trustees.
So back to my whole point, so when the student body
Okay, hold on.
has approved.
We're not gonna talk about this now. The Jack has the floor. I can come back to it. If you want to take a discussion, it's a point you're making.
It's a question, is that a yes?
Yes.
Great.
Answer's yes. I'll say. Jackie is.
Okay, I know everyone wants me to talk, but I don't really care. I'm gonna talk because I listen to everyone else talk. So everyone's argument is that we're a government, so I don't really understand the fact that every person in this room compromised for this. Okay, I saw this the first iteration of this. We have compromised, Ghost of Senate Pass and Speaker Crow have compromised 100,000 times on this bill to make everybody in this room happy. We have to reach a compromise. I don't know how much better you want Speaker Crow and Ghost of Senate Pass to be at compromising. I'm being serious though, like I don't know how many more things you want them to compromise on. And this was democratic. We all talked about it, okay? That's my first thing I want to say. On a more positive note, I am very proud of everyone in this room for getting past their initial biases towards Greek organizations and some of the organizations that are on here, and everyone acknowledging that these organizations are important. I am proud of everyone for opening their eyes and really seeing that and treating these and listening to people's concerns when they said we need to treat these senators exactly the same as how we're treated. So that's my positive note. I am very proud of everyone for changing their opinions and really listening to each other, because that's the point here. Listening to each other and understanding what other people and where they're coming from, their experiences, and truly taking into consideration what they said and not your own personal biases.
Okay, I'll be quick.
So yes, there's a system, yes, there are rules, yes, we are following all of that. We are also not the United States government. We are an undergraduate student government. So for the students, by the students. And lastly, I'll say we're always preaching like diversity, inclusion. Let's, you know, preaching to the choir. But I think like an essential first step is this. It seems so basic to me. It's completely democratic. All it's doing is including more students. It's really not that complicated. So I encourage everyone to vote in favor.
And not to me. Person last name.
All right, so good evening, everyone. So as you can see, these 15 organizations, how many people do we have in here who can say that they're representing certain organizations? We might not have a single person in here who is a veteran. We might not have a single person in here who is on the Student Athletic Advisory Committee. This gives a chance for them to have a voice in this body. They come in, they're chosen by their peers who are that organization. They come in here, they are ratified and approved by this body, and it gives their organizations a chance to speak here before all of you, before the entire, as an advocate of the student body, to bring their ideas and abilities forward to help advocate for the student body, regardless of whether they were chosen by the student body as large or their constituents, which are the organizations that they are a part of. Thank you.
You're probably the final speakers.
Spare everyone a second. So I heard concerns, Senator Valano, from you specifically and constituents in general from the idea that they're being appointed. So we did two things to address that. One, the Speaker of the Senate, not just me, but every single year has to meet with every one of these constituencies to talk to them about the way they select their representatives. Now, we have no power to force them to do it, but I can tell you right now that I'm going to encourage all I can that people move towards as democratic a system as is feasible. One. Two, as ex officio Keller has pointed out many a time, most, if not all of the organizations, especially the ones she's a part of, elected her. And third, just to make sure that there's a final check on it, I made it so they have to be confirmed by this body as well. This body, who is elected, by the way, and if you believe in if you are into democratic theory like I am, a body that is vested with the power of the people can then also vest that power in others. That is the whole purpose of confirmation. So with those three restrictions, not to mention the fact that they have the same right, the same responsibilities as senators and can be removed by Senate leadership, by impeachment, by anyone, and by this body themselves if those two other entities don't take action, that's more than enough to make sure that this process, which I'll admit is not as democratic as an election, has extra checks on it to balance out any concerns. Those were the compromises made. Those are the things I wanted to point out. Otherwise, please vote for this so we go.
What is exactly the purpose of representing this in this legislation?
There was some idea that perhaps some groups would select people who would be somehow unable to fulfill the same obligations that the people in this room fill while being members of clubs. So if some group felt as though they did not wish to have a total voice, but a slightly smaller voice, or the person who they put forward did not wish to put forth all of the effort that that constituency deserves, they would then have an option.
Okay. Yeah, do you have a question?
Can I make a motion to amend something on this?
What's your motion?
So, it's just two things. The first thing would be add a subsection, or add a section E to the first clause of ex officio senators and representatives to say that the term of all ex officio senators shall begin following the blank election and shall conclude the subsequent whatever be fall, spring, spring, fall, just so that there's a start and end date. And of course, if the boards want to keep the same representatives.
Get to your like discussion about it. I just want to make sure we get it and it actually right. Do you mind repeating that for us?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
louder voice so we can get it right.
Right underneath D, add a section E that says the term of all ex officio senators shall begin following the blank election and conclude the subsequent blank.
You have to choose.
Oh, I have to choose. Okay. I guess the following the fall election and shall conclude the subsequent fall.
I have the text of the amendment that I can share it on the bill.
Actually,
After. Thank you.
yeah. Check off what I don't want.
Right there.
Yeah.
And do you mind, you said you're going to listen? Okay. Do we have a second to this motion? Okay, now discussion on this amendment.
Wait, point. There was more to the amendment.
But this is the first amendment.
Okay. Do you want to make it at the same time?
Yeah, sure.
Wait,
So,
so if you make them both at the same time, they both have to pass.
oh, can I do one after the other?
Well, yeah, because also we already made the motion second anyway, so.
Okay, great.
Okay, so do you want to talk about why you want to do this? Or?
Yeah, sure. I just feel like, if we're treating everyone the same way, I think just as how regular academic and residential senators have a start date and end date, ex officio senators and representatives should as well. Actually, can I amend that to include representatives as well as some ex officio senators? Sorry, I forgot to.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Yeah. So, just so that they have a start and end date. Of course, if the organizations choose to keep the same person, they can. They would just have to be reconfirmed, just how we would do here in Senate. And I feel like this just makes it so that there is a start and end date to all positions,
Are there any other points or questions about that? Points of discussion? Yeah, discussion. Question.
Say that following the fall election could be like April. So maybe make that a little more specific.
Point of information. Why can't their term just begin when they're confirmed by the Senate? And then define when they end? So they end at the next election. Wouldn't that make more sense that they could be confirmed in the middle of the semester if they need to be, and then they end, be reconfirmed again at the election? Point of information. Why does it need to be included? My question to Chief Justice. Is that fair?
Does anyone want to answer that question? That is a question. Do you want to answer that question?
Could you repeat it succinctly?
Yeah, in my best. Why can't the term just begin when they're confirmed by Senate and end with the next election?
Yeah, I'll yield to the author.
Yeah, functionally it has to. You can't begin a position before you confirm. If Zoe started being external affairs chair in September, that wouldn't make sense because she wasn't confirmed yet. So, you're right. That is the way the system works as written right now. If one board wanted that person to continue to serve into the next year, it does not make sense to me to burden the second time with reconfirmation. Again, we have all the safeguards that the person needs to be removed, so to me, this seems frivolous. I urge it to go down.
Okay. So we're still in discussion here. If you have a rebuttal or something you want to say?
Not rebuttal or anything. I just wanted to say I literally took the words from the residential senators term in the current Periods Act, so it's literally word for word what it says above, with the words changed.
I kind of see us now, or foresee us now, debating about the trivialness and the intricacies of this clause. Can we, you guys, if this also turns into, if we don't debate about this, fine, but if we think that it's going to be a lot of debate about this, could we just change that to the term of all ex officio senators shall be decided by the Senate? And that way we don't have to keep debating about it all along. Or by the governing documents and bylaws.
Hi. I think that this is a novel thing if we want to make sure that ex officio senators and representatives are treated the same as normal senators and representatives. A normal senator can be elected once, but that doesn't mean that they're elected until they resign. I think that each year an ex officio senator should have to be confirmed in order to keep the likeness argument there. I think that's basically the argument here. With that, at this point, I think that there isn't very much more to argue about this, so I'd like to motion to move the previous question.
motion to move the previous question.
Okay, yeah, seconded. Okay, we're going to vote to move to the previous question. Those in favor of moving to the previous question, please say aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
We're just ending debate, moving into a vote.
Yeah, so this is just on the amendment that was proposed. And then all those opposed, please say nay. Okay, all those in favor, all those abstaining, please say abstain. Okay, this motion clearly passes.
Information.
So, yep.
What happened with the amendment?
Yep, no, so, now we just voted on that motion to repeat the question. So all those in favor of the amendment as it currently stands on that board there, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Okay, 2, 3, okay. So the motion,
Division.
okay, so all those in favor, want to stand up. If you're in favor of this, stand up. Stay standing. Stay standing. Sit down. All those opposed, stand up.
Bobby, you can't vote.
I can't vote, but.
Okay. You can sit down now. Any abstentions? Please stand up for us. Abstention.
No, I don't know that.
I guess motion
I can
carries.
do quick math.
Okay, we're now back in the previous. Yep.
Okay, I do foresee us really debating about this. Can we just amend it to, I mean, if you guys are in favor of just not having an amendment, that's fine. If you want to debate about this, and I'd rather not, can you just add an amendment that says the term shall be decided by governing bodies and other documents, and just end it there. And then if you want to talk about the agencies of that,
How about no?
We just talked about what we want here. I think there's a general consensus here.
Well, we all know this.
Yeah.
Yo, can we vote on the bill? You already know there's only like 3 people who oppose it because they don't like friends. I say we start throwing
Okay. Yeah, yeah, you're right. We have a second on the motion.
I spoke first.
Okay, all right. That means they will move into a vote to move to the previous question. Okay. So all those in favor of moving to the previous question, thus voting on the Peers Act. Right?
What the amendment is.
Yeah, so we're voting to vote, as I said, okay? And say aye.
Aye.
And say nay if you oppose this. Okay, any abstentions? Two. I'm from chair. I shouldn't do that all the time. Okay, this motion clearly passes. We'll now move to a vote. Okay. All those in favor of voting on the Peers Act, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Are there any abstentions? This motion clearly passes. Sit down. Get out of here, folks. Okay. So now move out of old business into discussion. Are there any points of discussion you want to share today, folks? Yep.
Quick thing, I'd just like to point out that Josh was wrong. There are not more people alive today than have ever been. That is all.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else?
I just want to say thanks for voting yes.
Well deserved. All right. Any other questions? Yep.
I'd also like to say that I actually appreciate Senator Delani's dissent on this. He has stood firm on it this entire time, which is actually something that a lot of people, myself included, have not done. And that is, what I did was honestly more frustrating than that. And I want to acknowledge that and appreciate that. Because it's really easy to go with the crowd, but it's a lot harder to stand in opposition and stand by the crowd.
negative note, well, positive negative, make sure everyone who wishes send a cap flash to Speedy Recovery. Just check the group chat and be updated on what's going on there. It's gonna be fine. Just make sure you wish them to Speedy Recovery.
I just wanted to recognize all of us in USG who participated in Husky Bob this past weekend, which was Legislative Coordinator O's, Speaker Crow, Senator
You.
Mosley, someone else, and myself. Squad. And we all pretty much did it in the 18 hours, so we were and yes.
Any more discussion? Yes, please.
I just wanted to say, I don't know if it was the right time to say it, but Mental Health Action Day was today. I spoke at it, one of the first times I ever spoken, I want to stand. I didn't see a lot of you guys there, maybe I was late, but like, I just think we all have to be more involved in mental health because we all suffer from certain things, and I just want to say that it was today, a lot of wonderful things came out of it, a lot of sad stories came out of it, but I'm happy it happened, and that's something you guys can do.
We're basically an announcements now anyway, so you're just going to announcements.
All right, so Rare Disease Day is Friday, 10 to 2 in the SOC. If you would like to volunteer to help out, in which you will receive Duncan from yours truly. I have a sign-up sheet here, so come see me afterwards, and I'll just sign it off.
Yeah, so 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the SOC, please come. Please volunteer. I had a dream last night that people signed up to volunteer, and I think stress a lot less about that. You know, you have the opportunity, and that dream comes true right now. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, so this is from the External Affairs chairperson who had to leave. Today was Mental Health Action Day, and the chairperson would like to have senators have specific legislation for how they're going to provide more resources to their constituents, whether it be overall posters, getting suicide prevention training themselves, or having listening sessions in their constituencies. Many people today have talked about not knowing resources on campus. Today at the Board of Trustees and representatives such as us should be working our best to disseminate that information to our constituents. So please start debating, start to think about it, and please work with the External Affairs chairwoman on this. She really appreciate it.
As some of you may know, voting is next week. Please vote. Get your friends to vote. Most of you, I don't know if you're running, whatever. Please vote. It's from the noon on the 3rd to noon on the 5th. Voter turnout has been, our largest voter turnout was 4,000 on a campus of 19,000. Tell people to vote. Share, I'm sure USG PR will have things on their stories. Please share the USG stuff of all of their voting promo. Like, as a representative of this organization, like, please.
I'm sending out an email about game night, which is tomorrow after services, and we're gonna have Mo's unless the driver gets like attacked. I hope not. So yeah, please come by. Hopefully we'll have the game room this time because I have my Wii, and we will play something. It's either Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. Maybe Mario Kart. You guys are scary Super Smash Bros. Okay, thanks. It's after services, so around 8:15. Yeah, but you guys can come by anytime. We're there for like at least 2 hours after that.
Planning the 100th USG event, so there was a survey that was sent out. Please fill it out so that we can find accommodating spaces and have a really nice, wholesome, and celebratory event.
Okay, I'm gonna wait till everyone pays attention to me. Thanks. Okay, Women's Health and Empowerment Fairs is coming Monday, 5 to 7. We have a really generous donor who brought in menstrual cups as well as free, not the donor, but like tote bags, buttons and stickers, that's the word. Please tell your friends, please have people come. Like menstrual cups literally cost $40 and they're gonna be free. They're way more sustainable than pads and tampons, and we cannot support pads and tampons under tampon time for like an indefinite amount, and menstrual cups will really help like lower that need. So please tell your friends. I literally have 500. Like your friends can all get them. If they menstruate, they can have one. They literally just give me their email. Like that's it. Please put it on your story. It's on USG's Instagram. It's also on Office of Sustainability's Instagram. It's also on Eco Husky, okay? Like please share, please put it out. Please follow Office of Sustainability. They're doing great work with this, and I really appreciate everyone's support, and your social media support really does a lot. If everyone in this room could share it, I would really appreciate you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can non-menstruating persons get a menstrual cup for one of their menstruating friends?
Unfortunately not, because we have to send you like information about how to insert the cup and like safety measures with the cup, because it's a lot more it's a little bit more complicated than like cotton disposable tampons and pads. And it also, menstrual cups are made out of silicone, so they're safe to like insert, like disinfect and take care of. But there are some more health risks, and so we have to talk to you about that, give you the instructions in the box, and brief you about like what's going to go on with it. So you do need to physically come and get it yourself, because I have to make sure that you're gonna be okay. So.
When is this again?
Monday, 5 to 7 in the ballroom, and it's a general fair, so there's gonna be other resources. UCPD is coming, the experts are coming, Office of Sustainability is coming. There's going to be a decent amount of people there, so it's a really good event, and you don't have to identify as a woman in attend.
Any announcements? Yeah.
And everyone said it, but it's Rare Disease Day on Friday, and I just want to add that it wasn't mentioned on our flyers or like announcements, I guess, but we are giving away, thanks to Don, t-shirts, stuffed zebras, and insomnia cookies. So if you can spread the word to your friends or like anyone you know to come to show support for Rare Disease Day, that would be great. And yeah.
Okay, I know I said this already, but we're also having rare disease ribbons, which if the student services care person was here, I would personally thank them right now, because they donated to the money to get those, since they do it by donation. So that was really awesome. And then we're gonna have a bunch of fun activities, like the handprint painting thing I'm really excited about. So like just putting your hand in paint. And then yeah, so that'd be fun. And then there's gonna be like a making the handprints and writing your definition of rare and making a chain of hands. And then I found all this great educational material that everyone can really learn a lot from, and I kind of freaked myself out with a little bit. But yeah, please come.
Any last announcements? Connor, from there.
All right, everyone. First, thank you, WC for voiceover, giving me the opportunity to speak up here tonight. But do you know what tomorrow night is? Yeah, guys, it's game night. Show up, please.
All right, folks. With that being said, yeah.
I'm sorry. Please show up to the upcoming African American Cultural Center and Rainbow Center events that Sean and Rita have been working so hard on with the Student Development Committee. That goes all from Friday through March. Then it's Women's Center with my event, but I'll talk about those later.
All right. That being said, folks, we're going to move by unanimous consent to adjourn at 9:02. Thank you all very much for coming.